Working with template-driven forms. Angular supports two design patterns for web forms called template-driven and reactive. In this video, we'll focus only on the template-driven forms. Template-driven forms are most suitable for small or really simple forms, such as a login form, a contact form, or a search form. Now, these forms use three very important forms module directives called ng-model, ng-form, and ng-model group. Now, for our demonstration, we'll update the contact form using this template-driven form design. Now, first, let's look at some differences and characteristics between template-driven and reactive forms. So this table shows some differences between the two forms. The key differences here can help you make decisions when you want to choose between, the template or the reactive. So if you want more control of your form models and you want your form to be more scalable, then the reactive form is what you want. If you just want a really simple form that you can create very quickly on the fly in the template, then the template-driven is the preferred method. So the key takeaway here is the source of truth. Let's look at another diagram to illustrate the flow of data. So here we have the source and the DOM, which is the template. As shown in the previous table, the source of truth, or also known as the form data, in a template-driven form is contained in the DOM, or in this case, or in the template. And in the source are the ng-model directive and the form control instance, which are used to interact with the DOM. So Angular can easily send data from the source to the view via this one-way data binding. However, because the data are stored in the DOM, Angular does not have direct access to this form model. The only way to do that is you have to go through a special Angular directive called ng-model. So we have seen ng-model work in the previous section already when we demonstrated how the data binding model works in Angular. So let's head over to the IDE and implement this contact form using this template-driven form design. Okay, before we start coding, I want to make a few minor changes, just minor fixes. If you notice, if you go to the About page, this button doesn't work, right? If you click on it, it doesn't work. If you go to the login or the register, you notice also the links down here doesn't work either. It's supposed to be links in there, it's supposed to be workable. And then thirdly, if you press F12, you'll see that there's some errors in here. And one of these is a refusal to apply the style sheet because of this MIME type is not supported. And what that means is just we have to include the type in for the CSS. So let's go and make that change. So open up the front end, go to the source, go to the index. Okay, so this file here, I actually mistyped this word style because the styles is plural. So we can fix that first. Now in Angular, it doesn't matter if you have this link or not. If you don't have it, if you don't include it, Angular will create that automatically behind the scene for you. That's why it was able to work even though it was incorrectly typed. But since we explicitly put it here, then the error is because we have to force to say the type is equal to the text HTML. That's all we need to do that. Okay, so that will take away the error, and this is good to go. Now for the other one, the buttons to work, and the reason why they don't work is because if you look in the About and also the login and the register, we had a user module and we have a About module. So when you have a module, then you have to import the router module in here. Okay, so I need to go into the import and just type in router module, and that will import that for this module. And we don't have to export it because the root module already has it. But in here we needed to add so that this add component will work. Okay, so that's it for this one here, and we'll do the same with the user module as well. So go to the imports here, just add in the router module, and that should take care of the problem. Just go to Control Panel, Terminal, and cancel it, and just run it again so that the new changes take effect. And so, all right, and while that's running, let's go ahead and open the contact form, the HTML, and also the source. Okay, so we can close this now, and those should work. If you can check it, you can see that now the link is already blue, which is good. That's what we want. And here we go. And then the About page is also working. If you press F12, and so you can see the error is gone. Okay, great. So let's go and create this contact form using a template driven. So here we go. In here, we're not going to do any data storage in here. So usually, if you want to store data to a database, then you create a data field here, a property here to store the data. But for this demonstration, we're just going to console log the data from the form so we can see what's coming through. Okay, so let's head over to the template first. So in line 13 here in the form, you want to give this form a unique name so that Angular knows which form to work with. Okay, so you would use the pound sign and give it a unique name. We'll call it contact form, and you bind that to the ng form. Okay, so that's so now it's managed by Angular through this ng model. Okay, so now when we submit the form, they want to bind that to the ng submit, and then we'll handle that with a function. We'll call it handle submit. And if you don't pass any data to it, you're not going to receive the data in the form. So you want to pass data through this form here, through this contact form name. So you put here the contact form name. All right, so this way it's going to call this form and get the data. If you don't do that, if you want to go through the DOM, then you can put here the event. And then this way you can get the DOM element instead of the form. But we want to use the form, okay? So you pass the contact form to that. And just to fix this error, let's go ahead and then create this submit handle submit in the source here first. So handle submit. And we're going to receive the variable contact form. I'll just use the same name. And we want to force this to be the type of ng form. Okay, so you can just hit enter, so it will import that ng form at the top, as you can see here. If it's not imported, you just have to manually import that here, so that we are the way we do this is because we want to protect our form to make sure that the data coming in is from that form. If it's anything else, then it's going to cause an error. So that's a security thing, right? And then once we receive that, we just log it to the console. So contact form. Okay, so this part is good for now. Let's go back here and then modify our code. So the first thing we want to do, let me just kind of collapse this, we can have more space. So I got this already. And then all the input fields, we have about 4 of them. One here, and the one down here, and text area as well. So we need to bind this to the value. So the value, we'll bind that. Notice we're not doing two-way data binding. If you do two-way data binding, you use the banana operator, if you remember that one, right? This is the way you would do it before. But since we're not binding to any data in the source, then we just bind to the value. And then this is now will be bound to this input, and then we need to also bind this to the form. So to do that, we also need to include ng model here. Okay, so that is all we need for every element here. So I'm going to copy this line or this code here, and copy it and paste it to all the inputs here. So one here, the phone number, and the text area here as well. Okay, and then when we submit the form, it's going to call this function and send out the data through this form object. Okay, so let's save it and go to the browser, and let's see if this works. I want to press F12 when I inspect the console to see what data comes through. All right, so here we go. We can just refresh it, just make sure. Okay, so I put my name. Okay, we'll put wrong. Phone number would be like 1234561, something like that. A message will be hi there. Okay, so if you click submit, and you see here in the console, it sends data in the ng form. If you expand that object, you will see some really important information here. And inside the form, all these are visible now. You can access it through this ng form object. But what we're interested in is inside the form object here under the value. Okay, so there's a value here. There's also a controls. Okay, a lot of things in here, but the value is the one you want to see. As you can see, if you expand that, you have an object, right? It grabs the first name, last name, message, phone number. These are the exact fields in our form. Of course, the order may not be in order, but again, it doesn't matter because object doesn't really matter. But you can see the data coming through here. All right, so through this object. And if you want to grab just those data, you can as well, but we have to just make one tiny change. So if you go back to the code and the source, when we update the data, we'll console log this. So instead of just getting all the other information, we just want the value. So we just say dot value, then that will return all the values only. And I'll log another one here to show you the console contact form.value, and then under the value you have all those objects, all those properties. Let's say we're going to get the is it the message? I don't remember what the form was. It's called what? The message, right? That's the message. So if you show the message, it will print the message only and to the console. So save that. Let's go to the browser and let's run this again. I have to do it one more time. So, and there's some fake numbers and okay, so I'm going to go and submit. So here we go. We see that we have the object of value returns all these different properties. And if you grab the actual property, then just put the dot name, dot first name, dot last name, and dot message give us this message. Okay, so you see how Angular able to get the data, but then it was not able to grab the data directly from the form. It needs to access it from the form object, passing through the ng model, and then you get that in the source. Okay, so this is how you will use a template-driven to create a template-driven form. Now that we have seen how the template-driven form works, next we'll create another interactive form using Angular's reactive forms.